Good evening, people of the internet. Welcome to the Worship Creators Roundtable. I'm Nathan.
We're doing
Because
one
it
of these
says
again.
so right there. We're doing another one. That's Cameron. That's Cameron. That's Preston. There.
Boy, we just never get any better at that.
It's so hard because it's
It
reversed.
just doesn't make sense.
I like being the one on the bottom because this is. I say that and I
Yeah,
can't even
sure,
get my
yeah.
hand in the frame.
Yeah,
Cameron
up is
Nathan,
always
there we
up,
go.
Preston. You just
So we're here to talk to you about church tech because we're clearly experts. Okay. All right. We're talking about backing tracks and multi-tracks today. Go.
Oh yeah.
You got
Some
it?
people do them. Some people don't.
Yeah. It?
I'll
Good?
say I feel
Yeah, all right, we'll see you guys,
unprepared for this conversation.
No, we're good. We're good. I got it. I got
Yeah.
the notes. Okay. All
Help us,
right.
Nathan.
Well, let's start with the intro. So this is Worship Creators Roundtable where me and Cameron and Preston sit around and talk about worship tech and worship stuff and all that kind of stuff. And instead of just talking about how to do it, like a lot of tutorials, we want to talk about why you do it and if you should do it and then how you should do it. So we'll talk about how you should do it. I feel like I had an announcement to start. No, I guess not. Okay, let's go straight into it then.
I was so excited to hear.
It was the multi.
Me too.
I remembered what it was. It was the multi-track sale, but it's not that this week anymore. So I'll say it anyway. So there's going to be a $5 multi-track sale. I bet you can guess my stance on multi-tracks by this statement. There's going to be a $5 multi-track sale on Reawaken Hymns the second week of June. I had to move it because of singers and album recording and fake teeth and things like that.
Well, and you want it to line up with Father's Day. Excuse me, fake teeth.
Don't worry about it. Yeah, Father's Day. That's why. That was why. Definitely Father's Day. So look for that if you're a multi-track person, which you might be.
And
you're
a dad.
watching about multi-tracks and a dad. It's my annual Father's Day multi-track sale.
Yeah.
Well,
So is being a dad a requirement of the $5 sale?
yeah, it's multi-tracks and grill tools. Those are the two things.
Exclusively doing Good Father, Big House by Audio A.
Yeah,
I'm
how
out
many
of
more
dad
can you
songs.
do? Keep going.
Yeah,
That's it.
that's probably yeah.
All right, so second week of June. That was my announcement, but that doesn't exist yet. Okay, let's talk multi-track. So let's start with why and should you. Let's start with should you.
Ooh, should. That's a good starting
Should
place.
we use multi-tracks in our services? Who wants to go first?
No,
before
so that
anybody
Nathan doesn't
goes,
get greedy.
before-
You.
Before anybody goes, if you have an opinion on this, put it in that live chat over there. I'm pretty sure.
Is it going to be that way?
I think so. On YouTube, it's that way. On Facebook, it's the comments below. So we want to hear your opinions on this because we're not experts by any means. We just are people who make them and use them and listen to them. So let us hear your opinion on it as we talk about it. So, okay. Who wants to go first? Should we use multi-tracks and backing tracks and click tracks in our services?
Not it.
Does that
Not
count? Okay. Is this no goes? I think so. I think a better question, maybe, is when should you or like when could you? Right? Because I think it's hard to say blanket like always yes or always no. Probably. That's probably yeah. I'll claim that because I think there are places when it's perfectly like fine and applicable. But I think that you should always have a good reason for doing it, and that reason shouldn't be so that we can sound like such and such, or so that we can sound like so and so. Unless there's also a good reason for that, maybe. I don't
Is that
like
the only reason to use multi-tracks? What's the other reason?
Well, yeah. No, I mean, I guess. Yeah, let me. Like, we are very prepared for this one. No, I mean, obviously, you do it to create a certain sound and a certain fullness and a certain, je ne sais quoi, as the cultured people like to say. Somebody says that probably.
What does that mean? Translate.
I don't know what.
That's in our worship team statement of faith, actually.
Je ne sais quoi. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's how we start literally every one of these worship roundtables. So, no, I think if you're just like a dude and an acoustic guitar and like leading a college group of 15 people, and you're like, man, I wish I could sound more like Bethel with my one acoustic guitar. I could do multi-tracks. Like that's probably kind of awkward and weird.
Also, if you
So-
ever say that exact sentence, you should watch out for other things too. But that's the previous
Hey,
live
like
stream.
go watch our last
Watch
live
the
stream.
previous.
Sure. Yeah. So yeah, I think a better question is so I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with them. I think there are times when you should use them. I think maybe you should ask why you want to use them and make sure you can come up with a good answer for that, not like a cop-out answer, right? Like I'm a big believer in, for the most part, when we talked about this a few weeks ago when we said, hey, we should probably talk about that for a live stream. I mentioned like it's kind of like an inverse bell curve for me. Like there's a point when it's like, okay, I am a church plant and I have no resources, and maybe I am like solo pastor and I have like a house church of 30 people and I suck at singing. So maybe let's use buy some, here's a plug for you, Nathan, buy some like lyric videos from Reawaken Hymns, throw those up on the TV, sing to those. I think that's a perfectly good application for a backing track or like multi-track kind of thing. I think if you are all the way on the other end and you have tons of resources and you can put a full band on the stage, it can be a really good way to supplement and augment that sound for a really fun and creative way. Also a good way to keep everybody like locked in. And we can talk about this a little bit more in some of the practical stuff, but it can be a good way to help your volunteers be set up to win because they can step into a system that's a little more predictable and I don't know, practicable. Like you can kind of plug and play a little bit, and some of the diehard musicians.
Hold that thought. So let's talk about that later because I think that's one of the probably most practical reasons to use multi-tracks in a lot of churches. So let's talk about that in a little bit. I want to put up Jamin's comment here. Preston, read that for me.
Why? Is there something wrong with you?
Preston, just read it, man.
Starting as a worship leader. Why are we reading it? It's on the screen. People can see it. Anyway.
You got to read it. That's how they do it on TV, man.
And what if we turn this into a podcast? Don't argue.
Yeah, you were just... Okay,
it's
out.
Point.
It's gone. It's done. It's over.
Fine. All right. Starting as a worship leader for a church plant, and I'm hesitant to use multi-tracks. I've done them as a bass player at my current church, but want a more organic / real feel. Yeah,
so that's a great point. And that's where, for me, like at the bottom of the bell curve, right? So like if up here is yes, you should do it, down here is no, you probably shouldn't. And over here is like, I am like, don't have any resources at all and I can't sing and play guitar. Maybe a backing track would be a good thing. I am church with lots of resources and would like to create a fuller sound and help my volunteers win. Like that's a good reason to do it. I am guy with acoustic guitar in a house church. Maybe not an awesome time to do it because it could start to get really awkward. Like if you have if you're gonna set up a PA in your house and you have your acoustic guitar and then electric guitar, that's weird. Maybe lean into what you have. And I think for me that extends even to if you're in a smaller church and you've got one guy who plays guitar, you've got Nancy who's been the organist for 100 years, and then a kid on a cajon. Maybe that's the culture of your church. Lean into that. That's not a problem to solve. It's a culture to embrace. That's a term I like to use a lot in just ministry and church leadership in general. Okay, don't come in as the young hip worship pastor and say, all right, we're doing tracks now. Nancy, try to keep up, and then completely rock the culture of your church. Fit it to your context. That's probably my 2 cents or 3 cents, I guess.
Yeah, and I think
you kind of got it. Sure.
I think that's where it goes wrong for a lot of small churches is just having a single acoustic player, and they're oh, I need all the instruments, so I'll do multi-tracks and I'll have everything. I think that ends up being strange. And it's especially true from a practical standpoint with drums and electric guitars. If you're just an acoustic guitar and there's drums going on, everybody knows there's not drums there and everybody can hear the drums. It's not like a pad or a piano part that people can ignore. It's distracting because they're I hear drums. There's only one dude with an acoustic. So at that point it gets a little like distracting, I would say,
Mhm.
and it's the opposite of adding to your music. It's taking away from it. And
Right.
like you were
Yeah.
saying, I think you establish like what is the culture and the like how does this team sound? Like if you're a small church plant, like Jamin, who just said he's planting a church in Orlando, would be using your hymns till God sends musicians. That's awesome. So yeah, if you're a small church plant and it's just an acoustic guitar, run with it. That's great. There's nothing wrong with just an acoustic guitar. There's nothing wrong with just a piano and a cajon or whatever. Like there's nothing wrong with any musical instrument configuration. You don't need more.
Yeah.
And that's where we get into multi-tracks should be a tool and not a crutch. Like you don't want to sound like Bethel, and then you use multi-tracks to get your one acoustic to sound like Bethel. Like that's
Right.
an issue, you know.
Yeah.
I think
And
I would add
again, I
too,
think.
just
Oh, you go ahead. I've talked a lot.
I was just gonna say, like to the point of kind of the small church, especially I'm not convinced we're saying it right. Is it Jamin? Or
Yeah,
is it,
let us
like,
know. Is it
Jamin? We had him on
or
that live stream from the Hymns
Yeah,
of the Father,
he was
and
a
he told me
he was a
couldn't
singer
remember.
on both of the albums.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Was he
give
good?
us like the phonetic spelling in the
Actually, he was
in the
really
comments
good,
there. Anyway, kind of coming from his context, like that's the last church I was at was kind of a similar thing. Like not like brand new plant. Like the church had been around. Jamin. Okay, I knew we weren't saying it right.
I know, but
Anyway.
I like saying Jamin. You know?
I did, yeah.
Sorry.
Every time
It's
we
fitting
packed
for a
book, I was like, yeah, this
multi-tracks
one's going
live
to
stream.
Jamin.
Yeah.
You can call me Nathan or something.
We do.
I'm not going to do that.
Anyway, yeah. So coming from that kind of like sort of context, going alongside with the like not being distracting element, one thing that we dealt with a lot was we had musicians, we had talented musicians, but we didn't have like the depth of roster, right? So we had like a guitar player, a keyboard player, a drummer. And on any given Sunday, if one of them was sick, it's like all of a sudden now the sound is missing this thing that it usually has. And that can be kind of distracting, kind of jarring, right? Unless you're like ready to just axe everything and move into an acoustic set. So I think having something like tracks in place for a church of that kind of like small mid-ish size gives you the ability to kind of pad those worship team members as well. So you can maintain a consistent sound. You can maintain consistency in that like kind of depth chart. It sounds like a disgusting way to describe it, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So that your worship session is not like, wait a minute, there's no like rhythm in this. What's going on?
Right. Yeah, I think. Yeah, that's a whole other conversation about like how you should you just trudge on without key instruments? Like probably not. But I'll say one more thing and then we can move on because we spent a ton of time on it. But
that's our next point is talking about what instruments we have and why we should add extras. So you can transition to that if you want to.
Okay. Sure. Yeah. And you kind of touched on that a little bit, Nathan, where like knowing the culture, I think there's kind of this belief that like the goal of all worship leading is to sound like it could be on K-Love or whatever. And if you're not achieving that, then you need to do like that is quote unquote like worshiping God. And you mentioned like, yeah, there's no specific like thing that is more worshipful than the other. So lean into your culture. So don't like jump into a church and think, oh, I have to get the biggest, fullest sound because that's worship. Like that's what worship is. It's like, man, not necessarily. Do what fits your culture. Don't railroad the culture of your church for the sake of sounding cool and good. And that's a bigger topic than even multi-tracks. Like that's a whole, like if you can put 10 people on the stage and like melt faces with volunteers, that's cool. Maybe that's not the culture of your church though. Like you're also a country church of 200 people. So maybe that doesn't really, read the room basically.
And as someone who leads worship, just real quick, often with only me, like on an acoustic guitar, it's plenty. Like I think a lot of people think that it's not enough, and it really honestly is, as long as you like just think it is. Like, like you get this sense sometimes that people are playing their acoustic and they're just desperately wishing there was a drummer while they're leading worship. And you can feel that. Like, but if you know that the acoustic's enough, this sounds strange, but it's so true. If you know that the acoustic's enough and you're just trying to lead worship for people and get them to sing, like, it's beautiful. It's enough. Like, I'm going to lead a conference soon that's huge. There's like 2,000 people that are going to be there, and I'll have a band and stuff. But like, we're specifically saying, okay, for one of these hymns, at least one of them, we're just going to do acoustic and singing because that's like enough. Like, sometimes that's just all you need. So like, I don't feel like you need to have more if you only have acoustic. Okay, sorry, that was my rant. Go ahead.
No, that's good. I mean, I was gonna try and transition back to like you were saying, like
that's good. I like that.
yeah, that
Free worship pads. Thanks, thanks, Jamin.
Yeah, it's not self promo if somebody else does it for you. It might be if you click the button that puts it on the screen, though. That's
I accidentally clicked it.
Oh,
no.
whoops! How'd that get there? Yeah. So right, I think you're exactly right. Like, there is that tendency to want to do more, want to have more, want to have bigness as like the target on the wall, and maybe that's not a great target. Really, leading people to the throne should be the target. And what's the best way to achieve that in your culture and in your context?
Electric guitars.
Yes, always.
Oh, was that rhetorical? Sorry.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, sure.
Sorry.
So what did you want to say about like specific instrumentation and people and like volunteer base?
No, I think that was good. Let's talk about when it would be appropriate to add instruments using multitracks. Like, what situations is that not a terrible idea or even a good idea? I mean, I can start with just like, if you have a simple band, say you have, I don't know, a drummer, a bassist, and an acoustic player, then maybe having a multi-track and adding in like the pads and some like background piano synth parts and stuff that are in there could add a lot of depth to that sound without actually like feeling like a karaoke track. Like, it's just adding layers to, or
Right.
like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Or, and like, or if maybe you have one electric guitar player and every Phil Wickham song has 27 electric guitar parts, like, it's okay to maybe add in those others. Like, ask your electric guitar player first, as Cameron can attest to. But if they're like, hey,
Sure.
I can't play all those, but I think they'd sound good, I'll take the lead. Why don't you play these? Like, that's a good use of multi-tracks, I think.
Yeah.
You just have to,
Yeah.
I think it's important that you use the extra instruments as a complement and boost to your current musicians and not a replacement for your current musicians. Whatever you add should be boosting what you have there in person, I would say, from a musical standpoint.
Yeah, I generally am going to agree with that. I think there are times, like for us, so we run multi-tracks every week, almost every week. And Ricky has a good question I think would be good to answer too here in a second.
Yeah. Wait, we'll get that in a second.
Like, there are weeks when we maybe like we'll fly in a track bass if we don't have a bass player that week, and that's like, I kind of hated it first, and I think I like it. I think I'm fine with it. I think I've come around, because it can be helpful, especially like we don't have a stage that's like enormous. We could put more people on it, but it would start to feel crowded, and then there might be like a lot more stage noise and like not sound great. So maybe it's easier to just put like fly in a track bass. And then you mentioned like from a guitar standpoint, like I played guitar in worship for 20 years. That's bananas. Good night. How old am I?
You're only 23. How could you do that?
Yeah, it's amazing. I was a prodigy.
That's crazy.
My little 3-string ukulele. Anyway, there's like, I played my fair share of like lead guitar in worship where you have to like try and figure out how to do both rhythm and then lead lines, like you're doing like any Phil Wickham song, right? Like, has these crazy lead lines that are kind of essential to the song, but then you still also need rhythm back behind it. So you're trying to figure out like, okay, so I'm going to do power chords and I have to jump up and do this little like, this is amazing. It's like, it's awful. So on those moments, it's really cool to be able to just say like, hey, can we turn on the track like electric that's just doing like big round whole note power chords, but it's enough to fill it out so I can feel free to just make like music. So yeah, I mean, I think there are definitely good places to supplement it, but you do want to be careful. Like if our drummer calls in sick, we're probably going to pivot to an acoustic set and not turn on the drum track. That's weird, you know. Or make a bunch of calls, or like actually almost all of our staff plays drums also, so we can find a way to fill a drum cage. But you know, there's certain spots where it's like, yeah, maybe don't go without. Hey, you found a picture of our
Look
set.
right there, the bald guy in the darkness. That's you,
Yeah,
right?
that is. You're right. Yeah, and Dave's playing bass.
Oh yeah.
Where did you get this shot from?
I screenshotted a YouTube service
That's,
just
when
now.
did we start streaming
You
an
picked, like,
anamorphic
the
widescreen? What the
worst
Well,
heck?
the
shot,
ads
too.
came up, so I had to cut off the ads for the picture.
Oh.
That was incredible.
There's Cameron.
Yeah, that's good.
Do you have a drummer there? Or is he on the other side?
He's
Yeah, it's
back
over
next
here.
to the right of Dave or the left of Dave on like screen side.
gotcha.
He's in a big fishbowl over there. So
Let's go to
that was a
Ricky.
week we didn't fly in bass. So
Ricky says, if there are not tracks for all the songs, would you still use them?
Yeah.
I'll start this one. Okay.
Yeah.
If the songs that do have tracks, the tracks are important or they add a lot, and you have more than like just an acoustic guitar, I don't see any problem with it because you can kind of add what you want. I might go light on what you add and the ones that have tracks. Like maybe don't add all 27 electric guitars for the ones that do have tracks. That way when you go to the ones that don't, it doesn't sound strange. But you could also make your own tracks too if you're into that sort of thing, which is actually sounds harder than it is, but is also really hard all at the same time.
Sure.
For a bass, what you could do is if they really don't have any tracks, for the ones that don't have tracks, you could just make a click cue track using your own voice. Just record yourself saying verse 1, 2, 3, 4 kind of thing. And that way you stick with the clicks and cues the whole time for the songs. And you could even add just an ambient keypad under that in the track. And then you have like your own easy to make 10-minute making like DIY multi-track for ones that don't have it. It's just like you can grab the free Reawaken Hymns pads. These are coming up a lot. I like this. Grab the free Reawaken Hymns pads, pick the right key, add that in like your DAW, like GarageBand, add that as a track, add another track that's a click track, like a clave doing a click, and then add a third track where you just grab a mic and you say verse 1, 2, 3, 4, that kind of thing in the right spot. And then you can have tracks for all of them and your band can feel the same guide for all of them without having tracks for them. So that's a good way to do DIY. But I would say, yeah, if you don't have multi-tracks for all of them, go light on the parts you use on the ones that do, but you can still use them, I would say.
Yeah. And I think, you know, one thing that we'll do pretty often, because here's another plug for you, Nathan. There's not a whole lot of like hymn multi-tracks out there yet.
40. There's 40 at least.
40. There's
There
at
will be
least 40.
60. Will be 60 in October. So.
That's true. So sometimes we'll like end a set. We'll do 2 or 3 songs and then end a set with just like click goes away. It just goes pad. And then we, so there are ways that you can kind of like fake it depending on the song. Now, if you're like, yeah, I don't want to buy the track for This Is Amazing Grace, so I'm not going to use it, but we're going to use the track on, you know, like a Bethel song or something. It's like, okay, that's weird because This Is Amazing Grace should be like super big and full. So knowing what your songs are, but usually if you can't find a track or there aren't tracks available somewhere, I mean, Loop Community or Multitracks or somebody has tracks for just about everything out there. But if you can't, it's probably a song that you can get away with faking it anyway. And like Nathan said, it's really not too like if you have GarageBand on your Mac for free, it's not hard to make something that sounds decent. An organ and an EP can do wonders in a multi-track setup. Like,
I should make a studio video for that, like how to make a 30-minute fake multi-track.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you can add just an ambient pad, a piano. I mean, you can even add a shaker. Like just grab a shaker loop from GarageBand and you have a natural click. Like,
yep.
Cool. Okay. So that kind of we kind of addressed it, but like we were trying. So okay, so let me say the question straight out. And
Sound it out. Yeah.
well, the question is, why do we need to add instruments that we don't have? Is the literal question that we're answering here. I think we talked about it a little, but I guess.
Yeah.
What would you say to just that question? Let's all three give a quick 1 minute answer to that question. Why do we need instruments we don't have? Okay, I'll start. My 1 minute answer is you don't need instruments you don't have. I think that's going to be the start of all three of our answers already. You don't need instruments you don't have, but you can use instruments you don't have in a tasteful way to add depth to a worship band to complement the musicians that already exist. Ambient pads are a great thing. Guitar parts that aren't being played. Like there's like on the multitracks I make, there's certain things on there like arpeggiating synths in the background, like do 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 kind of things. That's perfect for a multi-track. It adds a little rhythm. Nobody needs to play it. It's real quick. Like it's not going to take away from anybody's part. Ambient pads, that sort of thing. So if you're going to use instruments you don't have, which you don't have to, but it can add depth, then just be tasteful about it and make sure you're serving your musicians that exist in real life first, and then use the pads to complement them. Okay, that's mine.
Preston, do you want to go or you?
I think Nathan said everything, but I'll just to tack on and kind of maybe even reiterate for the people that weren't on earlier. My biggest takeaway, and I am not really a musician. I play a few instruments, but not like in a worship.
I didn't mean to make a face there.
No, it's fine. I don't play worship music. I play brass, and that's about the extent of what I know. My point earlier was just like coming from a smaller church context. There are situations where, for consistency of sound, like
you know what? Wait, hold on, wait. I just realized. So you, like you just said, you're in this situation. No offense, the audience member, the congregant, the person listening,
the plebeian, the pedestrian.
So I'm curious. Like, has there been times where you're out in church and you're like, where are all these instruments coming from? This is distracting. Has that happened to you before?
No. Not where we are now. Dave is a pro at building those, and I think years and years and years of experience have put him where he is with that. So he's got an ear for it, and I've never noticed that the track is. And maybe if I hear some like riff or something, I'm like, wait, Cameron's not even up there playing. What's happening? Then there's like, just by nature of like having played music in the past, I can pick up on some of those kind of minor nuances. But if I wasn't like thinking about music, no, I'd never notice it. That said, I like have been in churches in the past where it's like, oh, weird, they're using tracks because half of these instruments don't exist in this building. So I think it's noticeable if you suck at it.
Sage advice from Preston Norman.
Wait, what did you just say?
It's noticeable if you suck at it. Well, Nathan does that. Yeah, I don't. Is it gonna? I don't think that you ever need to add instruments. I'm a big proponent in just being creative. Yeah.
Oh, I did it wrong.
I know.
I give up. Dang it.
All right.
I did it again.
Forever immortalized in the halls of
doing?
YouTube. Thank you, Nathan.
Just go. I'm done.
No, just hit some more buttons at will. It's fine. It's great. Like a
Is
monkey
this
on
the
a
right
typewriter.
one? Are we doing a launch party?
How was that even in there?
I don't know.
Just a ghost of live streams past. Anyway.
You know what I think it's time for, guys? You know what I think it's time for? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Smitty.
Mm-hmm. It's our Matthew W. Smith break. No, Michael W. Smith. I can't. Oh, my gosh.
You're even making verbal typos now. What?
Who's
Novocaine?
Matthew W. Smith?
It's a Dollar Tree version of Michael W. Smith. It's like the same bin that you find all the Fish CDs in. That's where you find Matthew W. Smith.
And straight to DVD Nick Cage movies.
Oh, God, I love dollar store CDs.
That's so good. Thank you for that.
Oh man, whoops! I'm done with these buttons. I'm button crazy.
Anyway, yeah, I agree with Nathan and Preston. I don't think there's ever a time when you necessarily need to add instruments. People will probably disagree somewhat. But I'm a big proponent and just like be creative. Like, yeah, just because Phil Wickham has like crazy synths and guitar parts, like you don't necessarily need that. But at the same time, well, I'll say go on Spotify or Apple Music. Somebody somewhere has done a creative, different version of the song that you're looking for that could be simpler. So maybe try that if you feel like you need something else. But at the same time, like it can. I lost my train of thought. I got to thinking about Matthew W. Smith again. Yeah, there we go.
We're way past that, Nathan. You can't redeem yourself now.
There he is. There's old Matty Smith.
Oh, Matty Smith. Oh, you know what? Yeah. Matthew Smith. I think he writes for Indelible Grace. Okay, keep going. Okay.
He'll probably let us know in the comments.
Yeah, please. Yeah, would you? Anyway, yeah, I don't think there's ever a time you necessarily need instruments. At the same time, you can provide, I mean, like I said earlier, some consistency and predictability for your volunteers. Because, like, if you want to be super creative and say, hey, like, we have this kind of weird, we have a violinist, a cellist, an acoustic guitar, and a cajon. Like, we can't do XYZ. Like, let's be creative. Like, you may not have the flexibility or, like, talent to be completely creative and come up with your own composition. So that's where you need like tracks to help supplement that. And that's where tracks can help you like literally grab somebody and say, hey, you're on bass, use this string and push those 4 buttons. And that's all you need to know ever. And they can probably find a lane because of the structure and stability that Multitracks like provide.
Yeah, they're really good for beginner or novice musicians, which a lot of churches, small churches specifically, that's all you have. Like, I mean, I can't count the churches I've been in where the only bassist in the church started bass 3 weeks earlier because we needed a bassist on the worship team, you know, like, which is 100%. Great. That's a great way to try to serve. Like, and
yeah,
you want to
honor of how I played cajon at youth camp 4 years ago.
That did happen. Yeah. And hey, you did a great job. That's good.
That's a great way to introduce new. I think that's a good point. Multitracks are a great way to introduce new worship team members to the. Oh, geez, sorry.
I think it too. Coming from a like quasi like I have a musical background, but I'm not like no worship music experience, right? And I think it could be a good way. Like I've kind of listened to the tracks before, as far as like what the musicians are hearing, and with my like musical background, coming from purely like only an orchestral type setting, I could see that like if I were to pick up a guitar and try to like start playing along in that type of setting, that would be a really good like set of guardrails to help me, because it kind of mirrors that. Like you have a fuller sound, you have the rest of the band around you, you have like the tempo that you would be getting like from the conductor or whatever. So I think it would box you in a way that you can take someone from a different context who has like a musical background and like fit them into a worship worship set.
Yeah, a lot of mega churches like have band leaders that actually have a microphone that goes specifically to the in-ear monitors of people, and a lot of times what you're doing with the multi-track is just a cheap $10 band leader.
For sure.
Yeah, which is fine. Like Preston said, it's a conductor. Like if symphonies do it, I don't think there's any shame in you doing it if you need it. Like that's fine. Ricky's on a roll over here too. So go to Ricky's church to hear some Matthew W. Smith songs. All right, let's go to the nitty gritty, shall we? We talked about why and how and who and should you and all that. Let's talk about, okay, we decided we want to add some multi-tracks. We think it'd be good to add stuff. if you're a normative sized church or a small church, what's the easiest, cheapest, most stress-free way to add multi-tracks to your service?
Yeah, on the week of Father's Day, go to reawakenhymns.com.
Buy your dad a grilling apron and a multi-track.
That's
You could put your logo on grill aprons.
I'll put some sort of I'll find a fire quote from a hymn about hell.
yeah. Where's my hat, by the way?
Oh,
Yeah, same.
Laura, if you're watching, bring me my hat.
She was
This is
earlier.
cool.
She
This is really
translated our
cool.
French for
Yeah, I
us.
saw she was in French.
Um,
Yeah, so okay. So normal sized churches want to use multi-tracks. How do they start? Say they've never done that before.
yeah. So golly, now I can't remember the name. Dadgummit. What's the Loop community has their app? Premiere?
Prime.
No. What is it
Prime.
called? Prime. Yeah.
Prime.
Uh,
Optimus.
Yes. So yeah, that's right. Yeah. So that's a great on ramp. It's like a simple little app. You can start plugging things in. There's a handful of other little multi-track apps you can literally do from an iPad, and just run headphone jack out. Your left is your click, your right is your tracks, and that's easy to do. Anybody give it to the drummer in the booth, give it to your bass player, keyboard player, whatever, and there's all kinds of guides and stuff out there to do that. So that's kind of the most basic guerrilla warfare way to do it, all the way up to running Ableton Live or Pro Tools. Hey, thanks, Laura. Yeah, that hat's flipping dope. Yeah, so we run Ableton and run it that way. I know Life Church does Pro Tools. Hey, Dave Dolphin, don't give it to the guitar player out in front. Yeah, you shouldn't trust guitar players, Dave. Especially not when they work for you.
I think he means electric guitar players. I don't know. Yeah.
Probably specifically. Yeah. So honestly, Dave probably knows more than anybody in this chat combined about how to build and use multi-tracks.
Oh yeah, hey Dave, what are you doing? I said, yeah. Tell us, man. What do you think? What's it all about? What's the best way to use multi-track?
Just the rest of the live stream will be us putting Dave's comments up on screen.
Why don't we just invite him, right? I don't know how to do that.
I don't either.
Just text him a link. Anyway.
I guess that's theoretically possible. Now I'm completely lost track. Yeah.
Give it to the guitar player. That's where you are.
Yeah, probably don't do that. I don't want to have to think about tracks and also play guitar. But yeah, so again, they're simple all the way from apps all the way up to running an actual DAW. And well, yeah, Dave, we want to get our view count up. Dave says he's not wearing any clothes.
Why would you? I'm going to put that on the screen, Dave. Why would you put that?
Yeah. So welcome
This
to our
live
only.
stream now is a parental advisory.
It was 50-50. Either he wasn't wearing clothes or he was out in the pasture feeding his horse that he for some reason owns. So
You have a
Just
horse?
don't do those both at the same time because that can get dicey.
Was that a midlife crisis thing, Dave? Was that the horse?
Yeah, most
I
people
can
buy
say that because he's making
motorcycles or
videos.
Corvettes.
That's not insulting. He's got a video series about having a midlife crisis, so it's not.
That is true.
in his defense, it's his daughter's horse. So he's a horse dad.
So that's okay. So that's not a midlife crisis thing.
Although he did post a video or a picture of him feeding it the other day, so or taking
Be
care
honest,
of
Dave. It's your horse, isn't it?
He loves the thing.
We had so much fun for weeks on end, just Dave's got to leave, go see a man about a horse.
I'm going to give context because there might be people on the internet who are super confused right now. If you know who Practical Worship is and you're wondering what's happening right now, Dave Dolphin of Practical Worship is the worship leader at Cherokee Hills where these two serve. So that's the people might be very confused what's happening.
Yeah, that's the connection. That's why we know so much about his personal life.
In fact, that's why we three know each other because
That's
me
true.
and Dave had worked on YouTube from Reawaken Hymns and Practical Worship. And then he was like, hey, some guys wrote a book about Christmas stuff and want some songs. You should talk to him. And then
Nathan said, I hate Christmas. And here we are.
there you go. Okay.
Yeah, worked out. We converted him. Yeah, so practical ways. Anywhere from an app all the way up to a DAW. And there's different amounts of work that come into like each and every one of those situations and setups, and it kind of depends on like what you have time for and like tech for, right? Like, so our setup, we run Ableton through Dante into a Yamaha CL5 to do. So we, out of Ableton, we send 8. I think Dave, do we send 6 or 8 tracks? I don't remember. Hey, yeah, there's Ableton. It's one of my. Oh, is this your setup, Nathan?
Yeah, that's mine. Yeah.
What is wrong with you? Everything's gross and backwards.
What did I do?
I don't know. You got all your stuff on the right side instead of on the left side, and 8
This is
tracks.
just-
Yeah, so
This is how Ableton comes stock. I didn't change anything.
it's gross. Yeah, so we run 8 tracks out of Ableton, which includes like our click and our guide. But then also, I mean, we're running stereo keys and stuff. We've got, we can do drums, we can do all that kind of stuff. And so our board gets essentially a whole other band that the front of house operator can completely mix and tune and EQ and do whatever he wants right there. In addition to, so there's definitely times that, the guy at front of house is bringing in a guitar, bringing out a guitar, bringing in like a choir track or out like a pad, like as he needs to, or like, hey, the shaker's really crazy loud on this, I'm gonna like pull that down or whatever. So he gets to mix like it's a full band with all these discrete instruments, but 6 to 8 of them are a track coming off the computer.
Yeah, that's a good way to. I mean, like you said, you can have your keyboard or whoever do it, and you can also have the back of house do it. So that's a great way if you've got a limited band with limited capacity, and I mean that in a polite way, like they're doing as much as they can. Like you can have your sound guy run Ableton and automate everything and that sort of thing. And if you ever looked into this and you've like seen the Church Front channel, you know that you can automate everything with. I'm sure Jake Goslin's house is probably automated by Ableton. I don't know.
But honestly could be way less of an exaggeration.
He like
I bet
walks
he's
in the door and
experimenting.
like the oven starts from Ableton and like dinner goes, and I'm sure is how.
Sirius XM starts automatically playing smooth jazz.
Yeah, yep. So that's Jake Goslin's house. Yeah, so I'm sure if you've ever looked into this and seen like church front kind of stuff, you know that Ableton can automate everything. If you don't want to automate everything, like Prime, you said, is a good way to do that. Yeah. I wish Jake was watching this. He could confirm. I bet that's actually how his house works. Okay. So so you can use Prime in that. You can use any DAW too. Like if you buy tracks from a generic source that's not like the community of Multitracks that uses their own app, you'll usually just get a bunch of WAV files. Mm-hmm. And if all you have is a GarageBand or Audacity or whatever, you can just throw them into there and use them in there. I do get a lot of questions, I will say, of people like saying, hey, how do I use Multitracks? I just want to play them. Using Multitracks is always semi-involved because you have to have a thing to play them with. It's either a specific app or a DAW on a computer. You have all the tracks and you got to mute what you want and you got to have sections. So Multitracks are not plug and play. Like I have backing tracks on my site that are just a backing track and a click track that you just hit play and you go. You can also use those. So I want to talk about those in a second. That's why I'm going there. But Multitracks, you always have to, they're more versatile, but you always have to like plan them. Like you have to pick the instruments you want. You have to set the order of the song you want. You have to load them. You have to have them, someone controlling them, that sort of thing. So, but yeah, I think those are the same ways that I would say for any beginner using tracks. The easiest, honestly, the absolute easiest way, if you just want to plug and play, is to download like the Prime app on an iPad. You now have to buy a subscription, I think, to upload a certain amount of stuff. So you have to buy like
interesting.
Monthly. Yeah, unfortunately, but that's the easiest way. So you load them into that, you make a set list, and then you can just get like a headphone jack to right-left splitter cable, like literally just a $10 cable on Amazon. Run one end to your board, run both ends to your board, and then one side goes to your ears and one side goes to the house. That's the easiest, absolute cheapest way to do it. Someone will have to press play. You can set it up all ahead of time. You have to buy some storage space and stuff. So if it's just like you on acoustic guitar and you don't have a tech team that can handle that, that's probably the way to go. It's just have an iPad, Prime app, get it all set up beforehand, and then you can just kind of hit play. But if you have the capacity to do Ableton and to automate everything, that'll free up your brain a little during service that you don't have to do all that kind of stuff. And then the other option too is to not use multi-tracks, but to use backing tracks. Like I said, I would not recommend, even though I make them, I would not recommend backing tracks unless, one, you can't use multi-tracks, and two, you don't really have any instruments, because the backing track is just an MP3 file. It's basically an instrumental version of the song. So if, say, you're in like a church plant and you just have like a singer who doesn't have music and you have to do worship karaoke style, I don't mean that in a bad way. That's perfectly fine. There's no problem with that. But if you have to do karaoke style where there's no musicians, it's just a singer, then backing tracks are a great option because they can hear the click, they can hear the cues, and then the full instrumental thing's going on. And it's literally like an MP3 file, so you can just press play and that sort of thing. But backing tracks are really for only like karaoke style. Again, I mean that in a good way. But you know exactly what I mean.
Right.
There's no instruments at all. There's just a singer with a mic. So.
Right. And funerals. They're great for funerals.
And funerals.
Somebody comes in with a tape, says, "Can you play this?" And I look at my iMac and say, "No." And then it's really awkward because the funeral starts in 10 minutes. And yeah, it's a thing.
So our next live stream will be how not to aggravate the church sound guy. How about that?
Which would probably end up with a lot of aggravated church sound guys. It's impossible to not aggravate a church sound guy. Let me just put that out there.
That's true. There's literally no way, I don't think. Like,
no.
Have you ever met a church sound guy that didn't have something aggravating happen during service? Has that ever happened?
I bet we could build a chart.
Always a really flustered guy with like a half-tucked polo shirt with like gaff tape residue all over his hands. He's like, "I just got the splitter cord," and then he runs off, and that's every experience with a church tech guy I've ever had.
And we can say this because all three of us are church tech guys. So.
I bet we could build a nice hierarchy too of like how crotchety each position is. Like the lyrics person is always like the nicest, jolliest person.
The space bar.
But also the first person out the door. Like as soon as the pastor says amen, I look over and the lyrics guy is gone.
Like wait, what about the response song? Like, no, you got it, I got it.
Announcements are automatic.
Right, yeah. I push the button, you're fine.
That's why we have nitty, bye. Yeah. And then the camera operator's like, "Stop touching everything."
Yeah. The live stream guy isn't bad, but he's so distracted that he can't talk to you ever. Like, no one's ever talked to him before.
Oh, but see if that stops anyone from coming into the booth
them.
and talking to you.
Yeah. And then the sound guy, well, I mean, worst person in the world, really, right?
Yeah, he's the one hushing the camera guy who's trying to answer the guy who's in his ear.
Yeah, and he's holding a decibel meter, trying to get to 85 exactly.
I'm talking to you, Brendan.
Yeah. Let's have our next live stream be like the confessions of a sound person or something.
Oh my goodness! You get like the dramatic.
Okay, if you're a sound. Okay, this is it. If you're a sound person at your church, like get in contact, leave a comment, and we're gonna. You have to come on the next one. We'll have like confessions of a.
We should have people send stuff in. And then do like a dramatic reading of their comments, like
like a mean tweet.
That would be an incredible video to put out. Say what?
Like mean tweets
for like exactly. Like, all right, everybody who's ever had any experience in sound, write your experience.
I think we got everything.
Did we solve multi-tracks?
We solved multi-tracks. Oh,
we did it.
Oh shoot. We didn't talk about half of what we were going to talk about. Not half, but click track.
And half of what we talked about, we didn't know we were going to talk about. So
we were going to talk about click tracks too.
Oh yeah, like when you should, why you should.
Okay, real quick.
You have 8 minutes.
Real quick, let's talk quick tracks, and then I want to end with a comment from Preston. Okay, so let's start with click tracks. You're not using multi-tracks. You have a full band. You have a drummer. You have a bald electric guitarist. You have a really cool like lead worship guy who does hymns and stuff. You got the full band.
I can't think of any.
Yeah, you got the full band. Click track, no click track. What are your thoughts? I feel like click tracks are even more controversial than multi-tracks.
Oh yeah, 100%. I'm strangely okay with it. It seems like I shouldn't be okay with it because I'm definitely the guy that's like, no way, man. Let's just like make music, but I'm kind of okay with it. Sometimes, and here's what I think. I have played with guys who can't work well with a click track. It can go disastrous really, really quick if you don't have people who can play with a click track, because we've been in that spot. If you've been a musician, if you've ever tried, like, you're 3 bars in and all of a sudden you're already off the click, and now you have this really distracting thing that's not where you are, and like maybe the bass guy is like really locked in but nobody else is, and so now you have 2 different bands doing it. It's like a disaster. So I've played with drummers who are really, really good, which, side note, if you're going to have a click track, the drummer has to control it. That's not optional. That's dogma. And so I've played with good drummers who, like, they know that they get off, and they will, like, we have like a little Dr. beat that I've used, and like they stop it, they tap the new tempo in, like wherever the worship leader took off to because he got excited, like, okay, so let's match that, and then brings it back in. Like, you can do it. You have to be careful. If everybody can stay locked in, I think it's probably fine. It can even help. Like me, like I've done drums in worship, and I'm not a great drummer. And let me tell you, you do not want me to play drums without a click track, because I'll go all over the place. But if I can like lock in, and I think a lot of people can lock, like if they can lock in, it makes the job a little easier. So I'm kind of for it sometimes.
Okay, Preston probably didn't have an opinion here.
Okay, so I'm gonna throw a curveball and like.
Have
I
an
think
opinion.
people expect me to be objectionable on everything, or at least have an opinion. Yeah, I land like weirdly right in the center of it. Probably kind of like Cam does. Like pro tracks, if you can do it and do it well. Like if it's not going to be distracting, that's the biggest thing with all of this for me. Is like if it's not going to distract from the like atmosphere of worship, and it adds to it, then great, do it. Like if people on the team can't keep up, can't play along with it, whatever, it's going to do more harm than good, and it's just not worth it, and you shouldn't try to shoehorn that into what you're doing. Like Cam said, like
maybe that's the message for this entire talk is don't force it. Whether it's backing tracks, multi-tracks, click tracks, don't force it.
I'll go with that with the caveat of you have to force it. So
yeah. Don't force it until you have to force it.
Right. So with click tracks, I think you're exactly right. If it helps, it helps. If it doesn't, it doesn't. Like it's not a. I think some people think that click tracks are the way to go, and there's no other option. If you sound better without a click track, then don't use a click track. There's no reason to use a click track. But I will say, don't try a click track for one practice. Everybody's terrible, and then decide it's not going to help us, because click tracks are learned. Like you have to get used to them.
Yeah.
So I would say if you think click tracks will help, use a click track for at least 3 to 4 practices. And if by the end of, say, 4 practices, a full month, people still aren't jiving with the click track, then it might not be your style. You might be a little more freeform, and that's totally fine. But it does take getting used to play with a click track. Like I record these songs, and I mean every day I'm playing with a click track, and I'm still not used to it after a year and a half of making things. Like I always I'm like, oh, click track, it's so confining. But like, so it takes some getting used to. So don't throw it away after one practice. Give it some time, because it might actually help. Like if your band is kind of lagging and dragging and getting all around and tempo issues, it will help. And also, the more you need it, the harder it will be to use it, because you're lagging and dragging, and it's going to be hard to stay with it. So if you think you need it, give it some time, because it will take time, because you're lagging and dragging. That's why you need it. But after like 4 weeks or so, then you can make a decision and say, hey, we don't need it, because I was just playing it. The church that we actually just left, unfortunately, but they are a fairly decent sized church, and I thought they would use click tracks all the time, and they almost never do, because it's just not the style, and it's just not necessary. It's very acoustic and organic, and it's not necessary. So
yeah, and it is kind of like a drug. Like once everybody locks into a click track, it's hard to take it away and feel. It's like, well, what do I do with my hands though? If
where's the tempo?
Which is probably why people like get so adamant about it. Like, well, you have to have a click track, because now, like, once you do it long enough, like, it's really hard to break out of that.
Yeah,
which is fine, I guess.
Yeah.
King David had a click track when he led worship for the nation of Israel, probably.
Yeah, it was called the Holy Spirit, dude. While you're drinking. Spit it out. I think that's a perfect note to end on.
You said you wanted a comment from Preston. What was your?
I was, but I don't really need it. I was going to ask him his opinion. I already asked him his opinion on it, so we don't need it. It's fine.
No, ask him his opinion.
No, he's like the congregant, so I was going to ask him his opinion on that. But really, he said all that, yeah. So it's just it's interesting because I feel like every time you watch or read about click tracks and multi-tracks, it is 100% always the musicians writing the article or making the YouTube video. Like, there's no YouTube video of the person in the congregation being like, "It sounds weird and terrible, guys. Like, don't do it."
Yeah. So here's what I'll say because I talk to people who are like in the congregation who aren't like musical, and we onboarded a new guy to our team a couple months ago, and I forget what he said. He got back there, and I was just kind of giving him like the tour of the booth, and he was like, "Oh, I've wondered if you guys kind of use maybe extra tracks, something that I've never been able to tell." So that, Dave, if you're still watching, is a big win because like I feel like fly a ton of stuff in, but this guy like couldn't tell. So that's cool. Means we're doing it really, really well. About a month and a half ago. So I'm we used to have a ton of like lead guitar players, and then we've had a drought where it's just been me. But somebody like walked up to this other guy and was like, "Hey, that lead guitar stuff, some of the best I've ever seen," and like shook his hand. Like this is a guy who doesn't do that kind of thing. Like he does not just go out and like compliment people. Like he literally walked up to this other guy, was like, "Some of the best lead guitar work I've ever seen." And the guy was like, "Oh, it's mostly," I think Cameron's like, No, I could tell. You're pretty great." And then like shook his hand and walked off. And it's like, and like that's fine. I don't care. But the other guy who's rhythm blades, like, "Was that okay?" Like, I don't know what to do with that. And then finally on Easter, we flew in a bass, and I was playing lead guitar, and we did 2 services on Easter. And in between services, one of the singers came up to me and said, "Man, that bass playing was awesome." So people don't know.
To reiterate, one of the singers who was on the stage with you.
Singers came up to me and said, "That bass was awesome. Like when you hit that low note."
As you were playing electric guitar?
As I was playing 4 full octaves above the low D that the bass hit. Yeah.
The only guy grumpier than the sound guy is the electric guitar player. Nobody loves him.
And I happen to have extensive history with both, so that explains so much.
Yeah. That's why you're so grumpy all the time.
Yes.
Okay, I think we've worn our welcome. We hit the hour mark. Wow, that's impressive.
Yeah.
You got poltergeist down there? What's happening?
No, like every light bulb that we've bought for the last 6 months for some reason has been doing this stupid like flickering thing. And it hasn't been doing it until I sat down to do this live stream. And like the minute I turned on Restream, it started freaking out.
Okay, so thanks for joining us for this tech talk.
We know how light bulbs work.
We know. All right. If you have any more comments on multi-tracks and click tracks and backing tracks and stuff, leave them in the comments. The live chat will go away on the side, but you can always leave them in the comments below on Facebook and YouTube. And we'll see you back here in a month for not confirmed yet, but possibly Confessions of the Tech Booth. We'll see what happens.
Yes.
All right.
See.
Goodbye, everybody.
So long.